I'm Jennifer Igwe. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Environment Matters. It is no longer news that climate change is causing extreme weather events. It is a reality we are living with on a daily basis in Nigeria and in countries around the world. Weather hazards are beyond our control. We cannot determine the intensity and frequency. However, what we can do is to ensure that they don't end up in disasters, we don't have loss of lives and property. And this can only work if we have strategic approach to disaster risk reduction and emergency response. Today on Environment Matters, we will be looking at strategic management of flooding. What can we do to ensure that the flood disasters that we keep recording are minimized? Where are we getting it wrong? Because most times we plan and we have forecasts and we do all of that, and when the extreme weather events occur, we somehow end up seemingly caught napping. How can we change all that? We'll be looking at these and more, and going from Lagos to Maiduguri, where we have a major flood disaster now, and we have cases from that scenario still ongoing. Then we'll be going to Lokoja. We may not be able to capture all parts of the country today. We'll be looking at these states on the program, so stay tuned. Strategic and effective flood mitigation requires comprehensive measures that factor in the realities of climate change. This is crucial as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, made up of experts the world over, has also raised alarms on the impact of climate change on dam safety and management. They have advised and suggested the need for comprehensive understanding on how climate change affects hydrological conditions and integrity of dams. Dams are constructed primarily for functions that include flood control, power generation, irrigation, and even recreation purposes. In flood mitigation, dams can store excess water during periods of heavy rainfalls with subsequent release gradually. Despite the positives, dams can be the worst nightmare if they fail. This can happen as a result of weakening infrastructure, maintenance, extreme weather events, designs, and even conflict. Other factors linked to it can cause massive devastation. Professor of Geography and Director, Center for Disaster Management, University of Maiduguri, Abubakar Mungono, says the Maiduguri flood disaster is an example of this.
What we call a spillway is an emergency kind of arrangement where an emergency infrastructure that is put beside a dam to allow water, to escape in case there is need for it. So this is the structure that actually broke, and it is what caused the flood.
The 2024 Maiduguri flood disaster can be said to be a repeat of what happened 30 years ago.
I think it's also important to realize that in both 1994 and in 2024, the immediate issue that caused the collapse or the partial collapse of the spillway is the high or the excessive rainfall. You see, in August, the rainfall amount that we recorded in Maiduguri was in excess of about 300 millimeters in just 1 month. Prior to that, in July, it was again more than 200 millimeters. If you put the two, it's well over 500. That's about the entire rainfall that is about, that is being recorded, average rainfall recorded for Maiduguri. So in just 2 months, we had an entire rainfall that should last for the whole year. And that is partially what has gone to cause the flood that we have in Maiduguri.
Professor Monguno's point shows that although in 1994 many in Nigeria were ignorant of climate change, its effects impacted lives, livelihoods, and communities negatively. In that era, early warning systems and other strategies to check weather hazards may not have existed. However, in 2024, they do. Yet, flood hazards still spiral into disasters. With the nation working on improving its national disaster risk reduction plans, experts say there is need for more strategies.
That has become like biscuit, it breaks anyhow. So what we now need to do is to analyze this standalone, state standalone, so that we look at the impact of flooding on every state and how it impacts the national disaster. So it's very important. You don't group everybody together. There will be flooding in Sokoto, Zamfara, whatever. No. There will be flooding in Zamfara. Does it affect Zamfara? There will be flooding in Lokoja. Does it affect Lokoja? So how does all this contribute to national disaster? Because don't forget, they are all consequential. They are all interlinked now. What happened in Alaska is something in Alaska. What happened in Alaska does not stay in Alaska in terms of flooding. So everybody who must do standalone analysis that as it affects the states individually, because all states are not equally affected. Then secondly, the subnational government should take responsibility. It is not everything. Your bridge collapsed, you are calling the federal government. Your gutter is blocked, you are calling the federal government. No, we have a year to prepare. You have a year to prepare. So the preparation must be continuous. And thirdly, the Ministry of Environment must set up an operation room to monitor all this. And every day there must be monthly reports of the environment. You see, like I tell you, flooding is very, very important now because it is becoming existential, and it has very serious consequences on national security, on food, on transport, and everything. So it has to be taken serious.
The United Nations and other experts have emphasized the need for disaster risk reduction strategies that include early warning systems, effective communication, well-understood evacuation process, and emergency protocols that can ensure quick response during flooding. This is still Environment Matters. Let's go to Maiduguri, where flooding has dealt badly with the people there. The disaster has been described as one of the worst to hit the region in the last 30 years.
The recent floods in Maiduguri and surrounding areas have left a trail of destruction, with homes collapsed or on the verge of collapsing, infrastructure severely damaged, including key landmarks to include Eye Hospital, Shehu Garbai Quarters, Sandakiarimi Zoo, 505 Housing Estate, and several bridges within the city, among others affected. The floods, which lasted for several days, have brought the city to its knees, leaving residents struggling to cope with the aftermath. For Yakaru Mohammed Tar and Mohammed Audukoyam, what began as an ordinary day quickly descended into chaos as rising waters engulfed their homes, now grappling with immense losses, trying to salvage what they can from the wreckage.
Exactly 7 days ago, this place was submerged in water, and we are standing here today. The water has receded. However, the members of this community still count their losses.
The water came around 1 a.m. and the youth in the area tried to stop it using sandbags, but it overpowered them. In fact, we really suffered. Thank God we are all alive and coming to pick the pieces of our lives to see what the future holds for us.
I am but a poor man. Where will I get the money to rebuild my house? Well, I thank God we are all safe, and I embrace the flood challenge as destiny.
Business owners also bear the brunt, including Cynthia Amechi, whose family's chain of bookshop now lies in ruins, as her tears tells the story of a business community brought to its knees by the floodwaters.
My father has not been here. He's an old man, like he's of age. We don't even want him to see what his money has turned into. His sweat for how many years? BP is what we are afraid of. Seeing all these things.
On the other hand, the onset of the rainy season had been met with anticipation by farmers, hopeful for a bumper harvest. Instead, their fields are now submerged, their crops washed away, leaving them uncertain about the future of their livelihoods. In response, the Borno State government, led by Governor Babagana Umar Zulum, mobilized resources and activated emergency response mechanisms to address the immediate needs of the displaced persons taking refuge at about 38 designated camps, with international and local aid organizations on ground distributing food, water, and essential supplies, while tents and medical supplies are being dispatched to areas where waterborne diseases threaten to exacerbate the crisis by the Ministry of Health.
We're expecting these cholera vaccines either today or tomorrow here in Maiduguri, and therefore I wish to appeal to all and sundry in the state, especially in Maiduguri, that once we start vaccination, they should come forward, bring their children, especially under 5s are most vulnerable, so that we can provide them this vaccination and save their lives. We have already started distributing water sanitation tablets. We have already established sanitary conditions in the camp facilities, and houses would be fumigated before people move in.
Professor Mohammed Waziri from the Department of Geography at the University of Maiduguri detailed the factors leading to the flood.
It's not just the spillover the dam alone. Maiduguri happened to be situated at a meander of this particular river, Ngada, which has already become flat, more or less flat. So the dam spill is only one, but what happened is that at the same time, another river that is coming, the Ngadabul, that comes through the Kiarmi Park, came about the same time when the spill of the river Ngada came in. So the spill is only one factor, but the siltation on the river channels, the channel that crosses the city has already been choked up. It is not deep enough to accommodate water. It has become almost flat together with the banks. You cannot, at certain points, you cannot even distinguish between the river valley and the river banks. Unfortunately for us, for all these years, we have never desilted the river. There has never been an instant. The desiltation should have taken place in two places. The dam should be desilted, then the valley should be desilted, and even the upstream, down there in Jere local government, the so-called Jere Bowl, that too should also be desilted. Then the worst part of the scenario is the whole of Maiduguri is a flood plain. That one is basic. The river is only one channel. So when you look at the history of the river, even the foundation of Maiduguri in 1907 was based on the availability of water. By then you can dig a well not more than 3-4 feet, you can get water because it was a flood plain. So unfortunately, people build it without proper planning. So when the water comes into the city and it is overflowing, it has to just find more ways to move about. Then the other unfortunate thing is that the planning of the city, especially not only the planning, even the way we build our houses, there's no foresight for disasters. The way we build houses here, the cement we use to build houses, the blocks we use to build houses are not meant for a long term or to resist any mishap happening. And that is one thing that I think I will later call on government to make sure that there is a quality assurance in the type of building materials that we use to build our houses. when we talk about rainfall, quite already the pattern of rainfall has changed. The amount of water that used to fall in a year may fall in even one day. Ordinarily, Maiduguri shouldn't have more than about 700 millimeters of rain per annum. But I'm not sure of the statistics, but this time around it has gone beyond 1,000 millimeters. And some of them falling on a concentrated days. So that are some of the factors of climate change. Rains fall more than we expected. This flood happens after 30 years. Yes. So although we may not predict another year of happening, it can happen next year. Only God knows. Depending on how we plan for or how we are going to take care of what has happened. So we should not sit idle and take for granted that this flood may take another 30 years to happen. It can happen even after 30 days. Only God knows. This is natural. So people should get ready, plan for the future, and make good building materials. Government should plan the city or replan the city to open up roads and the gutters that used to bring storm drains to be reoriented. There are a lot of technical things that maybe this kind of discussion may not complete, but we are going to give advice, necessary advice to those who are concerned to replan the city. There's need to replan the city, especially where the immediate banks of the River Ngada.
Questions remain. Were authorities aware of the looming risks tied to the climate change and extreme weather events? Was there a plan to mitigate such a catastrophe? Shop owners are advised to properly dispose items that cannot be recovered to minimize environmental and health risks. In the end, it is not just the flood waters that will shape the future of Borno, but how its people rise in the aftermath.
So from Maiduguri, we'll go to Kogi State, where flooding has affected some people. Let's see how they are coping and plans to mitigate flooding and ensure that we don't have loss of lives and property. Jonathan Omajali is our guide.
On the streets of Adankulu in Lokoja, a group of cheerful boys caught my eyes as they enjoyed the last days of their long holiday. Carefree and full of life. Meanwhile, their sisters preferred the tranquility by the riverbank. The children all seemed happy, untroubled by what the future might bring. However, the older ones like Ruth Jethro are on edge as warnings of impending floods grow louder each day. It seems like just yesterday in 2022 when her home and many others in Adankulu were swept away by the devastating flood. The memory of that disaster still lingers, casting a shadow over Adankulu and other flood-prone areas in Lokoja.
I lose many things. There is too flat here. It collapsed. There is many things that we put in this kitchen. The kitchen even fall, and the whole thing go. Animal, power and goat. The water just flush them go.
For farmers like Yunusa Mohammed and his household, life becomes incredibly challenging whenever there is flooding in the state.
Our maize, the cassavas, all our crop, the flood affected.
In recent days, the water level has risen alarmingly. Over 500 communities across 11 local government areas in Kogi State are at the risk of being affected by the floods. The Executive Secretary of the Kogi State Emergency Management Authority, Mukta Atima, has stated that the state is taking proactive measures to address any potential disasters.
Have a yearly plan in which we carry out. It doesn't just stop with me. It has been something we've had a work plan in place since we've experienced this flood disaster first 2012 and the one and subsequent ones. So we are very prepared, and our preparedness starts from the public awareness we've been carrying out to the 512 communities that might likely be affected if at all there's going to be flood. We went down to them, to their roots. We engage traditional means to educate them, enlighten them of what is likely to happen. And in educating them of what is likely to happen, we're also looking at timing again. So we've been following up with the water level being given to us every day by NIWA. As of today, wow, it's an alarming 7.6. So, and the danger point starts from 8. So, as usual, we are also telling our people who are by the river banks to please leave the lower levels and go to the higher levels, and let's see what happens.
We should not just hope that it will not come, totality. You understand? We should be making a way from now.
As I'm talking to you right now, the executive governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Ahmad Usman Ododo, has approved that we open up 42 IDP camps. And we also have in Kogi a flood hostel that was donated to us by the federal government. And the state government we've tried to mobilize all these 42 IDP camps. Any moment from now, they will be open for people to go there. We have our staff that we've pushed to these 42 IDP camps. In case of any eventuality, the people can move to those places.
In 2022, the tragic incident of a boat mishap further compounded the devastation caused by the flood. The National Inland Waterways Authority is determined to avoid a repeat of such risk. The area manager, Titus Adoga, and other staff have been sensitizing boat passengers and captains on the importance of wearing life jackets and the need to avoid overloading.
And it is also the responsibilities of those who will use waterway to also have their own personal life jacket, especially when you are using it. So we are on the water to ensure absolute compliances. It is not for the drivers alone. The drivers, of course, they are able to swim, but a lot of passengers may not be able to swim. But that is why we are out, to ensure that the right thing is done.
For now, Lokoja and many other parts of Kogi State consider themselves fortunate to be free from flooding. Even the children of Adankulo can play in the street and enjoy the view of the river during their leisure time. However, if the warnings from NIMET are accurate, the days ahead may present challenges that will require humanitarian interventions.
Harmony of biodiversity destroyed, birthing climate crisis and crying faces.
Dicey situation indeed, yet we carry on like a bull in a china shop.
On environment matters, we take the bull by the horns, comb the nooks and cranny of Nigeria.
Asking tough questions.
Examining challenges and opportunities.
Giving human face to the science, facts, faiths, and global agreements. It's a call for action. Don't miss it.
Join award-winning environmental journalist Jennifer Igwe and other NTA Eco reporters for Environment Matters.
This is where we'll end today's episode of Environment Matters. We need to have more comprehensive flood risk assessment and look at what we've experienced in the past and what is happening now. What are the loose ends? What can we do to make the whole scenario and situation not occur again? I'm not saying that we didn't plan or we didn't have efforts on ground, but how can we tighten our approach and make what we have more tactical so that we don't have loss of lives and property? Now, this is very important. And also know that, like I always emphasize on this program, we all have a part to play. So don't just say it is all about the government. You can also have your own initiative in your neighborhood. So if you're not affected by flooding now, you can even start by building flood barriers where you are, so that in case of flooding, at least you can limit the level of water from affecting you. It might not be a perfect scenario, but that's just one tip that can help. We need to start taking practical measures from individuals, local communities, and importantly, relevant authorities. Until next week, when another episode of Environment Matters comes your way, I am Jennifer Igwe. Stay green.